Welcome back to the file that might just shake the very foundation of the ARMY universe. We are diving deep into a future that feels both inevitable and terrifyingly possible. BTS. They are the pride of South Korea, national treasures, and cultural icons who have brought the world to Seoul's doorstep. But have you ever stopped to ask the dangerous question? What happens when the cameras stop flashing, the stadiums empty out, and they finally exchange vows with their soulmates? Will the crowded streets of Gangnam still feel like home, or will it feel like a gilded cage? We are looking at a potential exodus that no one is talking about. Imagine raising a child where every step is documented, where privacy is a myth, and where your father's shadow covers the sun. Is it possible that the only way to truly love their families is to leave the country that worships them? From the crushing weight of societal expectations to the desperate need for a normal morning coffee without security guards, we have analyzed the breadcrumbs left in interviews, lyrics, and their own hidden desires. Are they destined to become global nomads? Who will seek the quiet of the countryside abroad, and who will chase the artistic freedom of the West? Buckle up, because we are about to unlock the 7 shocking reasons why the kings of K-pop might just say goodbye to Korea after putting a ring on it. Number 7. Jin. The weight of the crown prince, escaping the suffocating perfection of the eldest brother. We kick off this countdown with the man who calls himself worldwide handsome, the visual king, the eldest brother who held the fortress while the others grew up, Kim Seokjin. You might think Jin is the most Korean of the group. He loves his traditional food, he has that classic respectful manner, and he just completed his military service with the dignity of a national hero, earning accolades that made the entire country swell with pride. But pause for a second and look into those eyes when the laughter fades. Have you ever noticed that Jin's humor is often a shield? He deflects seriousness with a dad joke. He breaks the tension with a flying kiss. Why? Because the pressure on him is unlike anything we can imagine, and that is exactly why marriage might be his one-way ticket out of Seoul. Let's dig into the reality of his background. It is an open secret that Jin comes from a well-off family, a background that in Korea we often associate with the chaebol or business elite lifestyle. In South Korea, social hierarchy is not just a concept, it is the air you breathe. As the son of a CEO and now a global superstar, and then potentially a husband and a father, Jin would be trapped in a rigid social structure that dictates where his children go to school, who they play with, and how they dress. In the prestigious districts of Seoul, like Namjooning or Gangnam, privacy is non-existent. The Sky Castle education fever in Korea is brutal. Can you imagine Jin, a man who finds his deepest joy in the simple, mindless freedom of playing MapleStory for hours or staring at a fishing bobber in the middle of a silent lake, forcing his future child into the grinder of the Korean education system? It contradicts his entire philosophy of life. Jin has famously said in his solo track, Epiphany, that I'm the one I should love in this world. Loving himself means preserving his peace, but in Korea, peace is a luxury he cannot afford. Every time he steps out, he is not just Jin, he is BTS's Jin, the standard of perfection. If he gets married in Korea, the paparazzi won't just stalk him, they will dissect his wife. The Korean media and netizens can be ruthlessly critical of the spouses of top idols, analyzing their past, their looks, and their lineage. We saw how much he cherishes his privacy when he enlisted. He wanted it quiet, he wanted it respectful. He hates inconveniencing others. Now, project that onto a family life. If his wife goes to the grocery store, it's a headline. If his child cries in a park, it's a viral video. That is a suffocating golden cage. Jin's solo work, specifically The Astronaut, gave us the biggest clue. The song, A Gift from Coldplay, speaks of wandering, of finding a home in a person, not a place. The music video showed him in a Western suburban setting, riding a bike, living a completely anonymous, quirky life. It looked natural. It looked like the life he actually craves. He wasn't the Taehyung eldest brother carrying the weight of the group, he was just a guy. There is a very strong possibility that Jin will seek a place where his worldwide handsome face is recognized but respectfully ignored. Perhaps the quiet lakes of Switzerland, or a secluded estate in Canada, or the United States. He needs a culture that respects individualism over collectivism. In Korea, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down, but Jin has always been the nail that paints itself pink and winks at the hammer. However, doing that as a single idol is charming. Doing that as a father in a conservative society is irresponsible in the eyes of the critics. He knows this. He is incredibly intelligent and socially aware. He knows that to give his family a normal life where he can teach his son to fish without a drone flying overhead, where he can play video games with his daughter without being judged for not sending her to a cram school, he has to leave the ecosystem that worships him. The irony is tragic. The country that loves him the most is the one place where he cannot truly be free. He has spent his 20 seconds raising 6 younger brothers, cooking for them, driving them to school, protecting them. When he has his own kids, he won't want to share them with the world. He will want to hoard those moments greedily, and the only place to do that is outside the reach of the Korean spotlight. He might return for work, sure, but his heart, his home, and his mornings will likely be somewhere where the morning news doesn't start with his name. He has served his country, he has served his group, and when he marries, he will finally serve himself. And that service requires an exit strategy. Number 6. Suga. The genius who sold his soul to music, now reclaiming his silence in a land without shadows. We move down the list to the man who arguably holds the deepest, most complex soul within the group, the genius producer, the ferocious rapper August D, and the quiet observer Min Yoongi, better known to the world as Suga. If Jin seeks an escape to protect his peace, Suga seeks an escape to protect his very sanity and the sanctity of his art, and here is why his departure from Korea after marriage feels written in the stars. To understand Suga, you have to peel back the layers of his history, a history stained with sweat, tears, and a battle with mental health that he has bravely shared with the world. In the glossy, manufactured perfection of the K-pop industry, Suga was the anomaly. He was the glitch in the matrix who dared to rap about depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and social phobia in his groundbreaking mixtape track, The Last. He spoke of the Min Yoongi who died so Suga could live. Now imagine this man who has fought so hard to find his equilibrium, entering the next phase of his life, marriage and fatherhood. In South Korea, the stigma surrounding mental health is improving, but the scrutiny on a public figure's private emotional state is unrelenting. If Suga stays in Seoul, he remains under the microscope of a society that demands idols be perpetually accessible, perpetually perfect, and perpetually ours. But Suga has never belonged to anyone but his music. He has dropped subtle hints throughout his career that his ultimate goal isn't eternal stardom, but eternal freedom. Remember his solo documentary regarding the production of his album Times D-Day *? We saw a man traveling the globe, finding solace in the vast deserts of California, the quiet studios of Japan, and the isolated cabins where he could just breathe. He looked more at home in those fleeting moments of anonymity than he ever does on a red carpet. The Western music industry, specifically the producer hubs in Los Angeles, or even the artistic seclusion of the European countryside, offers him something Korea cannot, the separation of art and artist. In Korea, an idol is a public commodity. Their marriage is a public debate. We have seen how ruthless K-netizens can be towards the partners of idols, digging up high school yearbooks, past relationships, and every minor indiscretion. Suga, fierce and protective, would burn the world down to shield his wife and children from that toxicity. He knows the pain of malicious comments better than anyone. He has lived through the haters era. He has written cipher tracks about it. He would never ever subject a non-celebrity wife or an innocent child to that firing line. Furthermore, look at his trajectory as a producer. He has already collaborated with global giants like Halsey, Max, and Juice WRLD. His musical language is universal, and his ambition has always transcended the borders of K-pop. He doesn't need to be in Seoul to make hits. In fact, the stifling pressure of the Korean industry might actually hinder the next evolution of his sound. A move abroad would allow him to transition fully from idol Suga to producer Min, a role that commands respect without the requirement of fan service. Imagine him living in a modernist house in the Hollywood Hills, or a quiet, snowy retreat in Vancouver places, where he can watch NBA games courtside without causing a riot, where he can walk his dog Holly without a mask, and where he can raise his children to know their father as a human being, not a deity. He has mentioned in Suchwita, his drinking talk show, about his dreams of a long future, often discussing the downward slope of a career with a sense of acceptance and grace. He isn't afraid of fading from the spotlight, he welcomes it. Leaving Korea would be the physical manifestation of that acceptance. It would be his way of saying, I gave you my youth, I gave you my pain, and I gave you my music. Now, this life is mine. The intensity of his haigwem concept lifting the ban on forbidden things also speaks to this. The ultimate forbidden fruit for a K-pop idol is a private, unbothered life. By leaving Korea, he lifts the final ban. He breaks the final chain. We must also consider the social service aspect of his military duty. The unwarranted criticism he received for his shoulder injury and alternative service proved that no matter how much he sacrifices, the public court of opinion in Korea is unforgiving. Why stay in a place that counts your scars only to judge them? A move abroad allows him to control the narrative. He can release music when he wants, tour when he wants, and most importantly, close the door and lock the world out when he goes home to his family. For Min Yoongi, leaving Korea isn't about abandoning his roots, it is about planting new ones in soil that is soft enough to let him finally rest. Number 5. J-Hope. The sunshine who needs the shadows, escaping the eternal smile to find his true rhythm in the West. We have arrived at the midpoint of our countdown, landing squarely on the man who carries the sun in his pocket, the dance commander, the eternal mood maker, Jung Ho-sok, alias J-Hope. On the surface, placing J-Hope on this list seems like a contradiction. He is the member who seemingly embodies the vibrant, colorful energy of K-pop the most. He is the one who introduces himself as your hope, the one who laughs the loudest, the one who bought a luxury penthouse in the forest of Trimage in Seoul and seems to love the high life of his home country. But look closer. ARMY. Look past the blinding smile and the heart signs, and you will see a man who is desperately fighting a war between his persona and his true self. A war that might only be won by leaving the battlefield of Korea entirely. We need to talk about the Jack in the Box era because it was not just an album, it was a confession. It was a scream. For a decade, J-Hope has been trapped in the box of the happy guy. In South Korean culture, the concept of nunchi, the ability to gauge the mood of others, is paramount. As the designated sunshine of the group, J-Hope carries a crushing social burden to always lift the atmosphere, to always be polite, to always be smiling, even when he is bleeding inside. Can you imagine the torture of raising a family under that expectation? If J-Hope becomes a father in Korea, he will be expected to be the super dad, the always smiling neighbor, the perfect role model. He won't be allowed to have a bad day. He won't be allowed to be angry. The moment he shows a crack in the mask, the Korean media, which builds idols up only to tear them down, will ask, what is wrong with J-Hope? Is he unhappy? Is his marriage failing? It is a psychological trap. This is why his potential exodus to the United States, specifically a hub like Los Angeles or New York, is number 5 on our list. J-Hope's artistic soul is fundamentally rooted in American street culture. Before he was BTS's J-Hope, he was Smile Hoya of the underground dance crew Neuron. His roots are in old-school hip-hop, popping, and locking genres that were born on the streets of the West, not in the training studios of Seoul. When he performed at Lollapalooza in Chicago as the first South Korean headliner, something shifted. Did you see his eyes? He wasn't performing for cameras, he was commanding a cult. He looked wild, untamed, and arguably more at home in that sweaty, chaotic American crowd than he often looks on the pristine stages of music shows in Korea. The West offers him the one thing Korea cannot, the permission to be gritty. In the US, artists like Tyler, the Creator, or Pharrell Williams, whom J-Hope idolizes, are allowed to be multifaceted, weird, angry, and complex. They are not held to the Confucian standards of moral perfection. J-Hope craves this. His song Arson literally talks about burning his achievements to clear the way for something new. That something new could very well be a life where Jung Ho-sok can exist without J-Hope. Furthermore, we have to consider his fashion connections. J-Hope is a darling of the global fashion elite, particularly with Louis Vuitton. He fits into the avant-garde art scenes of Paris and New York seamlessly. In Korea, his bold fashion choices are sometimes met with confusion or are seen as just costumes. In the West, they are seen as high art. If he marries, he will want a partner and children who understand this artistic language, not a family that is pressured to conform to conservative Korean norms. Imagine him walking down the streets of Soho in New York with his child, dressed in baggy streetwear, completely blending into the artistic tapestry of the city, unrecognized not because people don't know him, but because in New York, everyone is a character. That anonymity is the oxygen he needs. We also cannot ignore the leader dynamic. While RM is the leader, J-Hope is known as the pillar of discipline in the group, the dance captain who watches every detail. That level of perfectionism is exhausting. Living in Korea keeps him in that work mode perpetually because the industry is right outside his window. Leaving the country creates a physical barrier between him and his work. It allows him to turn off the dance captain switch. He has dedicated his 20 seconds to being the hope for others. His 30 seconds and 40 seconds must be about finding hope for himself. And that hope likely lies across the Pacific, where the beat hits harder, the streets are messier, and where a smile can just be a smile, not a contractual obligation. He is a global citizen in the truest sense, and his nest needs to be big enough to hold his massive, complex, and often misunderstood ambition, a nest that Seoul, with all its beauty, might just be too small to contain. Number 4. RM. The philosopher king who craves the quiet of a museum, trading the presidential podium for the poetry of anonymity. We have reached the heavyweight division of our list, the intellectual anchor, the articulate spokesperson, and the man who literally carries the dignity of the entire K-pop industry on his shoulders. Kim Namjoon, the leader. RM. If there is one member whose departure from Korea feels not just possible, but philosophically necessary, it is him. Why? Because in South Korea, RM is no longer treated just as a musician. He is treated as a diplomat, a national symbol, almost a deity of cultural export. The pressure on him is geopolitical. But stripping away the UN speeches and the visits to the White House, who is Kim Namjoon? He is a young man who just wants to look at a painting in silence, ride his bicycle along a river, and read a book without analyzing its impact on his brand. The tragic reality that solidified his potential exit happened recently, and it sent shockwaves through the fandom. Remember the monk incident? RM visited a temple, seeking spiritual guidance, and a private moment of reflection with a monk, a sacred, confidential interaction. Days later, the contents of that private conversation were leaked to the Korean media. The betrayal was absolute. It proved a terrifying point. In Korea, there is no sanctuary for him. Not even in the holy silence of a temple is he allowed to be a human being. He is always content. If he cannot find privacy in a temple, how can he possibly find it in a marriage? If he builds a home in Seoul, it won't be a home. It will be a fortress. RM has spoken extensively in his solo album, Times Indigo Times, about the difference between being a firework, exploding, bright, fleeting, and a wildflower. Humble, grounded, lasting. Korea demands he be a firework. The West, or perhaps the quiet corners of Europe, offers him the soil to be a wildflower. We have to look at his travel patterns. Where does Namjoon look the happiest? It is when he is Namjooning in the art capitals of the world, Dia Beacon in New York, the Art Basel in Switzerland, the Rothko Chapel in Texas. In these places, he wanders through galleries often unnoticed, or, if noticed, respectfully left alone because the culture there prioritizes the art over the celebrity. He is a significant patron of the arts now, and the global art world is his new playground. It is highly probable that RM will choose to raise his family in a city that breathes culture but respects anonymity, perhaps a townhouse in Brooklyn or a minimalist villa in Basel. He wants his children to grow up surrounded by beauty, not cameras. He wants to be able to take his wife to a museum on a Sunday afternoon without shutting down the entire block. In Seoul, his presence causes a gravitational shift. Crowds form, phones come out, chaos ensues. He hates inconveniencing people. He has apologized for it countless times. To love his family means to remove them from that chaos. Furthermore, RM is a thinker who deeply values intellectual freedom. The Korean entertainment industry is notoriously rigid about what idols can say or support. RM has constantly pushed boundaries, but he is still tethered by the conservative expectations of the general public. Living abroad would sever those tethers. He could write books, curate exhibitions, and speak his mind on social issues without worrying that a mistranslated sentence will tank his group's stock price. He is a global citizen with a fluent command of English and a mind that expands far beyond the borders of the Han River. His lyrics in Lonely shout, "I'm fine." Lonely, a desperate plea from a hotel room. That loneliness stems from being on a pedestal where no one can reach him. Marriage is his chance to step down from that pedestal, but he can't truly step down while living in the country that put him there. He needs a place where he is just a tall guy who likes art, not the leader of BTS, For RM, leaving Korea isn't about rejecting his heritage. He loves Korea deeply and has promoted its culture more than anyone, but about reclaiming his humanity. He has been the president for too long. It is time for him to just be a husband and a father, and that is a role that requires a stage with the curtains drawn far away from the blinding lights of Seoul. Number 3. V. The vintage soul trapped in a digital world, seeking a Parisian romance to shield his future children from the madness. We enter the top 3 with the man whose very existence feels like a glitch in the timeline, the living work of art, the soulful baritone who loves jazz more than pop, Kim Taehyung, known to the world simply as V. If RM leaves for intellectual peace, V will leave for something far more primal and terrifyingly urgent, the physical safety of the massive family he dreams of building. Let's be real, Army. We often joke about Taehyung being from another planet, but the truth is, he is just a soul from a different era, trapped in the hyper-fast, hyper-connected, neon-lit pressure cooker of modern Seoul. He loves Bing Crosby, vinyl records, film photography, and the slow romantic aesthetic of the 1920 seconds. South Korea, with its pali-pali, hurry-hurry, culture and obsession with the latest trends, is practically the antithesis of his spirit. But the reason he lands at number 3 is much darker than just vibes. We have to talk about the elevator incident. It was a moment that sent chills down the spine of every fan. A stalker followed V into the elevator of his own private apartment building, tried to hand him a marriage certificate, and invaded the one space where he was supposed to be safe. V, usually so calm, was visibly shaken and spoke out about the terror of sasaengs, obsessive fans, on Weverse, pleading for them to stop because he was scared. Now, take that fear and multiply it by the vulnerability of a father. V has been the most vocal member about his desire for a family. He has stated he wants 3, maybe even 5 kids. He wants to be the cool dad who plays with his children in the park, the husband who grows old holding his wife's hand. Do you honestly think a man who has looked a stalker in the eye inside his own home will raise his 5 children in that same city? It is impossible. The risk is too high. In Seoul, V cannot walk 5 feet without a camera lens zooming in on his pores. If he has a child, that child becomes content. The paparazzi would camp outside the kindergarten. The sasaengs would try to find out the birth clinic. It is a nightmare scenario for a protective father. This points his compass directly toward Europe, specifically France, or perhaps the quiet countryside of the UK. We have seen V in Paris for Celine. He didn't just look like a model, he looked times alive asterisk. The European appreciation for flaner, the art of strolling aimlessly, observing life is exactly how V lives. He needs a culture that romanticizes privacy and respects the artist as an eccentric. In Paris or London, he could wear his vintage suits, play his trumpet in a garden, and take his kids to a bakery without causing a stampede. The West offers him the winter bear lifestyle he sang about, sleeping happily, flying like a bird, free from the cage. Furthermore, V has a rebellious streak. He marches to his own beat. He is the member who went live on Instagram for 2 minutes just to show he was listening to music and then turned it off. He hates being controlled. The Korean idol industry is all about control. Marriage is the ultimate act of adulthood, and V will likely seize that moment to finally cut the strings. He loves his fans, yes, but he loves his freedom more. He has shown us through his photography, Vante, that he finds beauty in the obscure, the cloudy, the overlooked. He cannot find that in the glare of the K-pop spotlight. He needs shadows. He needs dusk. He needs a place where he is just Kim, the guy who likes old jazz and hot cocoa. There is a profound sadness in his solo album Times Layover asterisk. It's about taking a break, about being in a transit period. Perhaps his entire career in Korea is just the layover, and his destination has always been a quiet chateau in Europe where the fences are high, the gardens are overgrown, and the only cameras allowed are the film Leicas he uses to take pictures of his sleeping babies. He is a romantic in a cynical world, and romantics always run away to where the poetry is real. For V, leaving Korea isn't a rejection of fame. It's a necessary evacuation to save the dream he holds most dear. Being a normal, loving father in a world that refuses to let him be one.
Number 2, Jimin. The angel who was hunted by the world, seeking a fortress where his love can finally be human, not a headline. Hold your breath, because we are stepping into territory that is as heartbreaking as it is inevitable. We have reached number 2, And we are talking about the man who is often called the it boy of Korea, the global fashion icon, the dancer with the voice of a siren, Park Jimin. If you think you know Jimin because you have seen him smile on V-Live or comfort the other members, think again. You are seeing the angel, but you are ignoring the target. There is a terrifying reason why Jimin might be the first to pack his bags and never look back once he starts a family, and it stems from a darkness that has followed him for years. Specific, targeted, and horrifying obsession. We cannot forget the years where Jimin was the primary target of international death threats. Do you remember the concerts in the US where police swept the arena for bombs and snipers specifically because of threats against his life? Imagine living with that crosshair on your back. Now imagine putting a child in that crosshair. It is a nauseating thought, and for a man as deeply empathetic and sensitive as Jimin, it is a non-starter. Jimin feels everything. He is the member who cries when others cry, who absorbs the emotions of the room. If he were to raise a child in Seoul, where the sasaengs culture is at its peak, he would be in a constant state of high-alert anxiety. He wouldn't be a father, he would be a bodyguard. We have to look at the apartment seizure incident as a major red flag for his stay in Korea. Due to a purely administrative error regarding his health insurance while he was busy representing his country abroad, his private financial information was leaked to the press instantly. The Korean media didn't treat it as a mistake, they treated it as a scandal. It proved that in Korea, even his mailbox isn't safe. Even his bills are public consumption. How can he protect a marriage license? How can he protect a birth certificate? He can't. This betrayal of privacy cuts deep for someone who works as hard as he does. Jimin is a perfectionist to a degree that borders on self-destruction. His solo documentary, Jimin's Production Diary **, peeled back the curtain and showed us a man who is often riddled with doubt, hiding in his hoodie, drinking alone, trying to find a sound that validates his existence. The song, Like Crazy, talks about losing oneself in the lights, about the distortion of reality. That isn't just a pop lyric, it is a cry for help. It is an admission that the Jimin we see is a construction that is becoming harder to maintain. In the West, or perhaps in the artistic solitude of a place like Paris or the hidden hills of Hollywood, Jimin finds a different version of himself. Have you noticed how free he looks when he travels? When he is at a Tiffany & Co. event in New York or walking the streets of London, there is a swagger, a looseness that disappears the moment he lands back at Incheon Airport and the blinding flashes return. He loves the night culture, the romantic, moody atmosphere of late nights. Seoul's night culture is vibrant, but for him, it is a cage because there are eyes everywhere. Abroad, he can be anonymous in the crowd. He can go to a jazz bar, have a drink, and just be a young man. If he marries, he will want to give his partner the world, and the world implies the freedom to explore it without judgment. Jimin has also faced immense scrutiny regarding his body and visuals throughout his career, often starving himself to meet the idol standard. A move away from Korea is a move away from that toxic beauty standard. He needs a place where he can age, where he can gain happy weight, where he doesn't have to be the ethereal fairy every second of the day. He wants to be a global nomad. We see it in his connections. He is building a network of producers and friends outside of the K-pop bubble. He is preparing the landing pad. For Jimin, leaving Korea is not about hate, it is about survival. It is about taking the filter off that famous song where he offers to be whatever you want him to be. In marriage, he shouldn't have to change his filter for anyone. He just needs to be Park Jimin. And to be Park Jimin, the human being, he needs to leave the country that will forever see him as a deity to be worshipped or a statue to be critiqued. He will choose love over fame, and that choice will take him thousands of miles away from the spotlight that burned him. Number 1. Jungkook. The Truman Show finale. The golden Maknae who outgrew the peninsula to become the world's first true global pop star. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the summit, the absolute peak, the number 1 spot on our countdown, and it belongs to the man whose departure from South Korea feels not just like a possibility, but like a destiny written in the neon lights of Times Square. We are talking about the golden Maknae, the pop prodigy, the man who turned the entire world into his stage, Jungkook. Why is he number 1? Because unlike any other member, Jungkook didn't just conquer the K-pop industry, he completely transcended it, and in doing so, he rendered South Korea too small to contain his colossal existence. To understand why Jungkook will likely leave Korea after marriage, you have to understand the Truman Show reality of his life. He debuted at 15. He didn't just grow up, he was raised by the cameras. We saw him graduate middle school, we saw him graduate high school, we saw his first drink, his first tattoo, his first tears. The Korean public feels a sense of ownership over him that is terrifyingly possessive. To them, he is not a man, he is their eternal baby. But Jungkook is not a baby anymore. He is a global titan, and the friction between who he is and who Korea wants him to be is becoming dangerous. The most glaring evidence lies in his solo debut album, *Golden*. It was a declaration of independence. The album was entirely in English. He collaborated with Lato, Usher, Justin Timberlake. He didn't promote it like a K-pop idol. He promoted it like a Western pop star. Did you see him in New York City? When he performed at Times Square, standing on that stage with the wind in his hair, surrounded by a diverse, chaotic American crowd, he didn't look like a visitor. He looked like the king returning to his true throne. He embodied the swagger of a Michael Jackson or a Justin Bieber. The Western music industry offers him the canvas he needs, unrestricted, raw, and massive. In Korea, his artistic expression is constantly censored. Remember the tattoos. For years, Jungkook had to wear gloves, use bandages, or blur his arms on Korean television broadcasts because tattoos are still stigmatized in conservative media. Can you imagine the frustration? A grown man, a world superstar, having to tape over his own skin like a delinquent schoolboy. If he raises a family, he will want his children to grow up in a society that doesn't judge their father for the ink on his skin or the piercings in his lip. He craves the freedom of expression that is fundamental to Western culture, but the reason for his departure goes deeper, into the dark realm of safety. Jungkook has faced some of the most invasive, sassing behavior in history. Who can forget the chilling Weverse post where he begged people to stop sending food to his house? "I won't eat it. If you send it again, I'll take action." It was a moment of pure horror. Strangers knew his address. Strangers were ringing his doorbell. In Seoul, he is a sitting duck. There is no gate high enough, no security team large enough to protect him from the obsession of a nation that thinks they raised him. If he has a wife and a baby, that house becomes a fortress under siege. He simply cannot risk it. Jungkook is a man of action. He is impulsive, passionate, and fiercely protective. He won't tolerate his family living in fear. We also have to analyze his live stream era. Jungkook spent hours on Weverse sleeping, folding laundry, washing dishes, and cooking. Critics called it parasocial, but psychologists might call it a cry for normalcy. He was trying to simulate a normal life with millions of people watching because he couldn't actually have a normal life outside. It was a paradox. By moving abroad, perhaps to a massive, secluded ranch in Texas where he can ride motorcycles and box in peace, or a hidden mansion in the Hollywood Hills, he can finally turn the cameras off. He can cook dinner for his wife without 10 million people commenting on the recipe. He can fold his baby's clothes without the world watching. He is the most Americanized member in terms of his vibe, his musical taste, and his attitude. He hates rules. He hates stiff formalities. He is a free spirit who has been kept in a golden jar for over a decade. The lid is loose, Army. The success of Seven and Standing Next to You proved that he doesn't need the K-pop machine to survive. He is the machine. He has conquered the East. The West is the only frontier left that offers him the one thing he has never truly had, anonymity in the crowd. In Los Angeles, he is a celebrity. In Seoul, he is a religion. You can retire from being a celebrity. You cannot retire from being a god. To be a husband, to be a father, he must descend from the altar, and the only way to do that is to physically leave the temple. Jeon Jungkook will always be Korean. His heart will always beat for his country, but his wings have grown too wide, too golden, and too powerful for the peninsula. He is ready to fly, and when he does, it will be the end of an era and the beginning of a legend living freely in the wild.